My name is Rachel Schwam. I'm Associate Director of the Rutgers Energy Institute, and I run our speaker policy series. And so I'd like to highlight some other events we're having coming up. October 29th in the evening, 5 to 7, over on Bush campus, we have a Women in Energy event. We'll have Karen Reed from PSE&G and Grace Powers from Board of Public Utility, and they'll be discussing their career paths in energy, and kind of this is an opportunity to mentor lots of undergraduate students, graduate students, but anybody else who's interested in kind of careers in energy. November 1st, we had Diane Sikot. She's from Drexel University, and she's been working on production networks around fracking gas, liquids, and plastics. And so she'll be presenting some of the policy issues she's been working on there, and the research around these kind of circular problems. And that's here in Blaustein in the Special Events Forum. And then November 8th, we have a really great event shaping up on ocean and energy governance for offshore wind. This is with my colleague in the Department of Human Ecology, who's a legal scholar, Simi Payne, and Heather Payne, who's a legal scholar at Seton Hall University, who has an expertise on offshore wind and where transmission lines meet the coast. We're going to have various Rutgers faculty commenting on kind of various coastal issues related to this, and so we're really excited for that. That's November 8th. It's a Friday like this one, 10:45, I think, also here in Blaustein. So those are the events we have coming up. I'd like to just quickly introduce our panel we have talking about energy storage here. And we have Clint Andrews, is a professor of urban planning and the director of this Rutgers Center for Green Buildings, an associate dean for faculty at Rutgers University Blaustein School. We have Ali Ghofrani, am I saying that correct? Who's a recent PhD in industrial and systems engineering from Rutgers University and works on optimizing energy systems. And Nathalie Pereira is the Associate Director of the Energy Storage Research Group at Rutgers, which focuses on the research and development of advanced electroactive materials, chemistries, and energy storage devices. And so with that, welcome to all of you. Again, see if we can repass the sign-in sheet to capture folks who come in, and I'll hand it off to Clint. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rachel, and welcome everyone to Rutgers and to the Blaustein School. I just want to see who's in the audience. How many of you are students at Rutgers? Okay, just a few. I'm glad you're here. How many of you are, let's say, state employees? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Climate activists.
Okay, how many of, that's probably everyone in the room.
Right.
How many of you are state employees? How many of you will choose a different affiliation than those two? Okay, good. So we have a nice mix. What we when Rachel approached us, I think it was this summer, to talk about these issues, it was in the aftermath of having done an interesting piece of work for the state, and that means that we want to be very careful to offer this disclaimer right at the beginning that we are not offering any policy positions. We're not representing the state in any way, and these are our own personal views, our understanding of what our applied research yielded. There is a full report available on the BPU's website at this URL, and this was work done by a fairly large and multidisciplinary Rutgers team led by Professor Mohsen Jafari, over in the School of Engineering. And so 3 of us who were on the team were available to come today, and we will share the parts that we know best, I guess I'd say, and we look forward to basically a series of short presentations that we're going to offer, and then time for Q&A and discussion, because I think a lot of you know as much as we do about many aspects of this important subject. And I want to acknowledge there are several leaders in the audience. Commissioner Chivukula is here, and so he can help us understand what the current board positions are on this. We have past board president in the room as well, and we have many other people who I should know the names of, but I don't, who have been players in this space. So 4 sections, this introduction, then Nathalie will talk about the technologies, Ali will talk about the applications, and then I'll come back at the end and talk a little bit about what we are seeing as the sort of the good bets through the view of kind of cost-benefit analysis. So, first, motivation. Energy storage has become interesting lately, in part because we have an electric power system that is needing to deal with increased amounts of solar, wind, electric vehicles, each of which is introducing surprises, introducing some intermittency into the grid, and so energy storage becomes a way to make the electricity more useful and to ensure that the grid remains a little bit remains stable. There's also a more instrumental motivation for doing this study, and that is that the state legislature has directed that it get done. And so roughly a year and a half ago, the Energy Policy Act of 2018 directed that an energy storage study be done. And so with that as set up for why do we care about energy storage today, I'd like to now turn to Nathalie, who will introduce us to the energy storage technologies.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So as I have been nicely introduced, this slide is just to show how we have performed our evaluation of the different technology of the energy storage for this project. So we have assessed a wide portfolio of technologies. Those include the mechanical, electrochemical, thermal, and chemical. Of course, I'm not going to talk about every single one of them today, since we're going to be staying here very late. I don't think you want to stay with me that long. And we actually touched on the commercially available, new commercially available, but also the next generation ones, so that the state can also have a view of what they could look into for the future. So we wanted to determine their suitability for the grid application also in New Jersey. So we looked at the general, but also the applicability for New Jersey. So to do this, we also looked at the real installations that we have, not only in the US, but also internationally, because we wanted to have address the largest spectrum of utility needs, but we also wanted to have the most state-of-the-art, which may not be the one that we're going to be installing here. It may also be the ones that are out of our borders. So our focus was the implementation within the US. So we actually looked at different parameters, such as the scalability, energy and power densities, lifetimes, robustness, but also the cost of the installation, the lifetimes cost, the environmental impact, and all of these parameters were fed to Clint, for example, for his economic assessment that he's going to be talking later on, and also for the analytics and the network level evaluation that Ali is going to talk later. So let's talk into a few of them so that we can have a little image of what it's going to be looking like into what's going to be looking like in New Jersey, and have an image also of what energy storage is looking like today in New Jersey. So we have the most important one, that is the pumped hydro storage. Why is it the most important one? That's because that's the predominant one everywhere. Globally, it's 96% with 169 gigabytes. No, that's my computer, gigabytes. And 90% in the US. And when we look at New Jersey, it's even similar. It's 89% because they have about 475 megawatt of energy storage, and they have their single pumped hydro station that is nicely represented here, which is the Yards Creek station in New Jersey, in the north of New Jersey. They have 429 megawatts. So just out of basically the single energy, mechanical energy storage technology, they have 90% of their needs, or what they currently have. So this is a mature technology. It can feed a wide range of technologies, and it's also the lowest lifetime cost of installation. If you can see here, in the average installation cost is the lowest right now. It's less than $150 per kilowatt hour. So this is great. You can have a lot of megawatt or gigawatt per installation, but the problem is that you are limited by the suitability of the geographical sites that you need. You need to have two huge lakes or reservoir, if you want, and that are like separated with a height. So I don't think that you can go and check around. There's not that many around. There's one like this, and they may have the possibility of others, because you have engineering and designs that are still underway. They have like new designs that are underway that may level off or basically make a little that you may have no need for such geographical requirements, such as basically using the sea salt and other, like maybe also using underground mines. So this is what it is for the situation of the pumped hydro storage. If we looked at the compressed air energy storage, it's another mechanical energy storage. It's the only other one that is also low cost. It's the blue one. And it's also the only one that is able to generate large amount of power outputs. The problem is that you also have similar geographical requirement restrictions. Because what it is that you actually put a lot of air that you compress under high pressure and you put it in a cavern underground. So you don't really have that many that fit the profile. You only have 2 large in the entire world, one in Germany and one in Alabama. So there are also developments underway for other geological structures, but it's not at the moment, maybe for the future. So it could be a possibility, but not right now. And there's none, of course, in New Jersey. So let's jump into the electrochemical energy storage evaluation. Electrochemical energy storage is very big at the moment. if we actually look at this, it's very interesting. This is the power capacity and the energy capacity. There was nothing until basically 2011. But if you go already all the way starting in 2015, it starts to grow exponentially. So it remains a very small size. It's like 1.9 gigawatt globally and 680 megawatt in the US. But it's really it's become the most rapidly growing segment since 2015. So it's really something that we have to look into. We cannot really bypass that segment. So there are many options of batteries that you can look at under the electrochemical storage. So, of course, the lithium ion, it's ubiquitous, you have it everywhere. You have it everywhere in your bag, in your computer, your phone. You cannot get rid of it, even if you try. So this is, in fact, the lithium ion that is really driving. It's the driving force behind the growth of this electrochemical segment that is growing so fast. So it's only 1.5 gigawatt by the end of 2017. But it is being driven because its cost is basically, it has been decreasing really fast. This is the year-to-year decline price of the battery and one of its other system, because of course a system is not made only of the battery. It has many other components which is impacting the price of the system significantly. So not only do you have to have the battery price that is decreasing, but also the other elements. So these two elements, their costs are decreasing. So it's contributing to the utility system market growth. So although this is really driving, this is really decreasing in cost. The problem is it's still much higher than the pumped hydro. So it's great. The problem is that pumped hydro cannot meet every single need that you have. First of all, you most likely cannot even find any other place where you can have another pumped hydro. So you're limited, you're like, okay, I maximize all the sites where I can have pumped hydro. So anyway, I have to look at other energy storage. So what the portfolio in New Jersey is going to look like, it's not going to be only one technology. It's going to be most likely different technology. So you want to try to maximize each that is going to serve each purpose adequately. So the good thing about the lithium ion is that it's scalable, modular, short installation time, and it can also serve a wide range of utility applications. So if you want to go and place a battery in a small area, I don't know, you're not going to be able to place your pump hydro over there. So you're not going to be able to do the DER, which is right now it's not coming. When you want to distribute the distributed energy resources, you're not going to be able to do that with the pumped hydro, but you will be able to do that with the lithium-ion batteries. So far what we have in energy in lithium-ion systems is 44.5 in New Jersey. It's quite low, but it can increase. It all depends on what basically the needs are in the future or currently. So high temperature batteries such as sodium sulfur is they're really interesting. There's none in New Jersey, unfortunately. I like them. I really like them. They're in Japan quite a bit because, okay, they run at high temperature. They're over 270 to 350. And one of the problems is that they're manufactured by only one company. So if something happens to that company and you want to have your system fixed or something, you have a problem. So this company is NGK Insulator, and they have installed 530 megawatts over 200 sites. So what I think that is really amazing is that they have just installed in January 2019 the largest battery that is currently working in the world, which is 108 megawatts, 648 megawatt hours, which is larger than the lithium-ion battery that I forgot to mention, which is 100 megawatts, 129 megawatt hour. So the battery that is lithium-ion is 129 megawatt hour. This one is 648 megawatt hour. So it's like 6 times bigger. So, and it's the world's largest virtual battery plant. So what they did is, like, in fact, the battery is an ensemble of 15 smaller systems that are dispersed within 10 locations, but they can operate as a single system or as 15 little systems. So you have the possibility of having like 15 batteries or one single battery, depending on your needs. So talk about distributed energy resource. Yes, so it's located at Abu Dhabi. And in fact, the reason why they chose this technology is because it's very difficult to have the temperature of the lithium-ion batteries maintained at the right temperature. And it's hot in there. I don't know, I didn't go in Abu Dhabi myself. Maybe somebody of you went. So it's hot in there, so it's easier to have a battery that is always hot, that doesn't need cooling, than having a lithium-ion battery that needs cooling and that may be a safety hazard. And like this, they're like, okay, now it's always hot. I don't need to bother about cooling. So I think it was pretty smart. That's why I like it. So it has a wide range of services, and it's actually, they have long system for long durations and continuous use applications. So it has also other advantages. And apparently the future, you also have the idea, so it's based on really cheap chemicals such as sodium and sulfur. So on the long run, if it's made like on largest volume, it should be cheaper than lithium-ion. So I like that. I like that one. But apparently it's not going to be New Jersey tomorrow. So flow batteries, that's also a very interesting one. There's not that many in the world. There's only 268 megawatt. And they're very attractive because, in fact, you have the species that are in the solvents, that are in tanks, but the tanks are outside of the battery itself. So you flow your electrolyte through the battery, and it's quite stable because your electrolyte is not sitting all the time inside the encasement here where the reaction occurs. And you can also separate the power from the energy. So talk about scalability. You can really do whatever you want. If you want high power and low energy, it's really easy to do, and you can do vice versa. So what we have in the US, the largest that we have, is 2 megawatts, 8 megawatt hour. It's in Washington. But what is very interesting is that China is on it. And in 2017, they even issued a policy that requires the deployment of multiple megawatt scale vanadium redox flow cells. And currently in 2019, there should be the commissionment, or there's a 200 megawatt, 800 megawatt hour system that should be commissioned this year. So if you actually look at this number and our number, there is a 100. We're very small compared to them. So I don't know if they're ahead of us or if we're behind. I would say we're behind, but they already have like a much larger system than we have that are already operational. So they're really betting on it. But it's picking up in the US, and CellCube has just signed in March 2019 with an unnamed, they're not saying who they signed with, and they're planning to manufacture 100 megawatts of flow cells here in the US. So it's picking up. So I think that's, and then CellCube is saying that, as Navicant is also showing that within the next 3 years, those flow cells will show less than $300 per kilowatt hour. Yeah, flow cells are supposed to be cheap also. And because the electrolyte, the catalytes and the analytes are, supposedly it's not going to be degraded, and you're going to be able to keep them. And even if you want to change the cell, you should be able to put it in another cell. So lowering the costs. Finally, thermal. Thermal, I'm sure you all know about it. It's been around for 30 years, almost as old as me, I wish. So ICE is mature technology to basically do a peak shifting, right? And it's deployed globally, and in New Jersey we have about 9.5 megawatts. So it has different systems, centralized system for large scale, distributed system for small scale. So the costs are lower than the lithium-ion storage, but the problem, of course, is that it basically only does this, peak shifting. We cannot really do all of the other applications that we want to do, like frequency regulation and resiliency. So it's not to say that it's bad. You can also use thermal or ICE as a lower risk, lower cost, that can be an attractive approach for the adoptions within cities and communities with expanding commercial entities. So it's not saying that a single one energy storage is the answer. It's saying that one has always one good thing that can be applied to something that could be then associated to a good strategic portfolio, which is what we say here. So currently in New Jersey, we have 475 megawatts. The major contribution is pumped hydro at 420 megawatts. So we still have many opportunities to grow, and apparently we have to, which is great. So as we say, when we have a problem, it's not a problem, we have opportunities. And here we do have opportunities. The pumped hydro storage, okay, so it's the lowest lifetime cost and massive scalability. So if we look at the targets that we have at the level of the state, we could just kill it with one stone with a pumped hydro somewhere if we find the spot. But we have to find the spot, and so we have to find the spot. It's high capital cost, and it's also long time to construct it. So we have to take into consideration all of these conditions. So in the northern sections of the state, there are maybe some sites that could be applied to pumped hydro in the future if the technology advances. And there are even like there was like one of the old mines that had been even looked at already for that. So same thing for compressed air. It would be the same thing. You could kill one bird with one stone. I kept saying killing the poor stone that is already dead with a bird. I'm so good. At least the bird is alive. So, same thing. We would be able to have a lot of energy storage with compressed air, but we have similar restriction in terms of the geotopography, which is maybe not applicable right away. What is applicable right away is, for example, batteries. They're flexible, modular, standalone, and we can deploy them right away, and they can be installed, boom, boom, boom. Look at Tesla, he comes in, like 2 months, you're gone, we don't even see him, and you have your battery system. Not that we don't know if it works so well.
Most of the mines are below the ground, some of them up to 9,000 feet. How do you, the Yards Creek station that uses gravitational for the storage, how are you going to use the abandoned mines for hydro storage and generate electricity?
I know that there was one creek that I don't remember the name of it. I looked into it, and they were looking into it.
No, but my point is, if it is below the ground, you got to. So the way Yards Creek they have 3 different levels, and so they pump the water to the highest level,
Right.
the intermediate level.
Yeah, but apparently, if something is underneath, if your reservoir is underneath, then your other reservoir is at the surface.
I don't think I follow what I'm saying. In order for you to gain from the reason Yards Creek is working is because of the altitude at the 2 levels of reservoir.
I understand, but you will have to create only one reservoir. I mean,
Okay, all right, it's okay. Go on.
no, I want to understand your question.
My question is, what Yards Creek?
I understand it's 2
I have-
reservoirs.
They use the electricity at off peak hours, and they pump the water to the higher
Yes,
level.
yes,
And then when the water they bring the water down, it's like a waterfall.
yes.
They generate electricity. My question to you is that the mines, most of the mines I know, they are below the ground. So yes, you can store the water down there, but how are you going to use that to generate electricity?
Right now, they even try to use systems that are like two pistons made in like cylinders in the ground, and they do that in the ground.
Water doesn't flow up, it always flows down. So that's why it was the gravity. There's no gravity.
I'm not.
You only get to use gravity on the way down. On the way
Yeah.
up, you're always pumping, and that's true at Yards Creek as well.
That's why
No,
you're
but-
reversing it. That's what.
No, but you're gonna have to pump it down up. You're still gonna have to do the same thing.
I think she's saying that the 2 reservoirs will function in the same way.
Yes.
Even though at Yards Creek, you have one at, say, let's call it ground level, and the other is up.
Yeah,
No
you.
With
reservoir.
the mine, you have one at ground level and one down, but I think
Yes.
you're saying
Yes.
energy, the gravitational energy when the water goes from the surface down into the mine
Yes.
can generate electricity in the same way.
Exactly. You're just gonna have, instead of being like one above the level of the earth, it's gonna be one like this and one underneath. It's gonna be exactly the same system. You're gonna have to pump the
Yeah, but
water.
you have to calculate the relative energy consumption when you're pumping. That's a very important formula. So, the mines I visited are 9,000 below the ground.
I don't understand what is so hard.
I don't want to waste time on this.
No. Okay, now I am back. So this is your underground.
How deep is that?
So this is like the reservoir. So we're gonna do this. Instead of doing this, up, down, up, down. Instead of that, you have the same
That
height.
sounds very good theoretically. That's my concept. You got to calculate the energy in the pumps, the gas, how much energy they use to run the pumps, what altitude that you are, how deep you are going. There are a lot of factors on this.
Yeah, Nathalie, we should move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should keep going so we have time for the rest of our panel too.
You know, there have been studies that they've done. I'm going to send you whatever I have. All right. So, I was here, right?
I think you're done, actually.
You're the thermal, yeah.
Yeah. So then why doing the batteries? The batteries, then you can put them anywhere, like I had said, and they can be installed very rapidly. And the thermal is a good addition anyway, even it can do only the peak shifting because it's combined with the others that can do the rest of the applications.
Okay, thank you, Nathalie.
Thanks.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ghofrani, and I'm with Industrial and Systems Engineering Department at Rutgers. I was a part of the team that worked on the analytics and modeling aspects of the ESA project. So in a few slides, I'm going to go over some of our assumptions and the applications of energy storage. This is a general overview of the work we did. So the objective here was to receive the input for a specification of different ES technologies, such as charge and discharge rates, round-trip efficiencies, self-discharge, and state of charge, minimum and maximum state of charge. Receive this information as an input to our simulation platform, and compute some calculations and analyze the applications of ES for facility level, network level, and bulk level with different applications, and generate outputs and case scenarios for economic study and cost benefit analysis for sensitivity analysis as well. So for our case scenarios for facility level, we use different load profiles with different building functionalities. We try to include buildings associated with commercial, industrial, and also residential endpoints, and different types of facilities such as hospitals, schools, residential buildings, different types of industrial facilities. And we use 26 different load profiles, most of which were based on New Jersey real meter data. And also we use US Department of Energy building simulations based on New Jersey weather data as an input to our analysis platform. Here in this slide, you can see some of the samples of the load profiles, daily load profiles for the building functionalities that we use. Here I have 18 different facilities, and as you can see here, these facilities have different behaviors and load shapes, and this is also really important to us because it directly impacts the application of ES in an analysis as well. Also for distribution network analysis, we use 3 different representative distribution network topologies to be able to see and evaluate the impact of ES on distribution networks as well. And you can see those 3 topologies that we use in our analysis. One of the most applications of ES is improving resiliency of facilities. We evaluated 2 different scenarios. One scenario was long duration outage and the other scenario was short duration outage. And we wanted to see how ES can improve the resiliency of that facility, how ES can kind of avoid from unserved load. The objective here was to minimize the unserved load with different rated capacity and durations for ES technologies and different load profiles of facilities. The results indicate that there is a high correlation, there is a relationship between the rated capacity of ES, duration of the ES, and the load profile of the building and the facility and the amount of unserved load. Different facilities have different critical loads. They want to serve a specific portion of their load. For example, a hospital, they have to at least during outages, they want to at least come up with 70% critical load of their facilities, right? So based on the application and the objective of that building and critical load of that facility, we need to kind of design and size the right amount of ES technology for that specific building for resiliency applications. We can also think about some other applications when we have ES on site, such as behind the meter solutions for electric bill management. So a facility can have at the same time can reduce its electricity bill, and also when it's needed they can kind of improve their resiliency.
One question.
Sure.
Are you doing the study only on a storage alone basis, or are you combining it with other technologies?
Both. Exactly. The value, I didn't want to get into the details, but the value of ES becomes more noticeable for long duration outages when it's combined with on-site generation and specifically renewable resources. When we don't have any renewable resources, that means that energy storage for long duration outages does not make any sense, right? So the impact of energy storage becomes more important when it's combined with on-site generation. And we wanted to emphasize on renewable energy resources because other sources of on-site power generation like diesel generators are already existing. So we wanted to see what would be the impact when it's coupled with renewable resources. And we specifically worked on PV generation in this system. One other application of ES is generating revenue streams. ES is a responsive technology, and it can participate in ancillary services to make revenues, right? And it can participate in different energy market applications, such as frequency regulation and arbitrage. In these two graphs, you can see that there is a high correlation between the size of the ES technology and the amount of revenue that it can generate. But we have to take into account some other factors, such as competitiveness in the market saturation over years, and maybe in the future years the need of the grid changes and there wouldn't be any requirement for the operation of the energy storage to operate in the market. So we know that ES can generate revenues, but on the side there are some obstacles and factors that we have to take into account. But the location of installation of this technology is also important. If we want to kind of target arbitrage market, we want to kind of install that ES technology in the locations that have more variation, daily variation for energy price. So the arbitrage become more applicable, and the revenues increase, right? So here I have a plot, I have a graph that indicates the daily price variation from 2014 to 2018. And this plot tells us that most of the time, northeast of New Jersey had most main congestion and kind of most variation, daily variations, and that can be somehow a good target for ES technology installation for revenue streams for energy market. Speaking of the location of installation of ES technology, for different applications such as improving the resiliency of facilities and distribution network, the location of ES is also important. For example, those locations and regions that are prone to more risk of disruption can be good candidates for installation of ES technologies. Those regions that are remote and have limited access can also be good candidates for us to improve the resiliency and reliability of the network, and that and we have to take that also into account.
Excuse me, what's a sensitive location? Your third category.
Sensitive location, that means that first of all, some facilities are really important for us. They are like critical facilities. That's one point. Like hospitals, like military. I don't have any specific example in my mind right now, but that's what I mean by sensitive.
And the military is using energy storage for that purpose.
They need to power be on for a good amount of time. So the other application of ES is how ES can recover and support renewable power generation. We kind of developed different case scenarios, and in these case scenarios, the objective was to kind of optimize the size of renewable power generation with and without ES. So we solved our models first without the existence of energy storage, and after that we sized renewable power generation with the existence of energy storage. And when we add energy storage, higher sizes of renewable resources become more economically justifiable. So this means that energy storage can support more investment in renewable energy resources as well. So in this example, we picked those three distribution networks that I presented in the previous slides, and we ran our simulations. And for example, here we see that there's a 24% increase in the investment of PV generation. Here we have 61% PV generation investment and 41% for another distribution network. This also tells us that this is very case specific. For different network topologies, for different aggregate load profiles, the impact of ES in supporting renewable power generation may change. There is no general rule for this, but case by case, this improvement changes. But we always see that improvement and it's like intuitive, and we can it's obvious that it can improve it. But how much it can improve the investment in renewable energy resources, that's very case specific.
I have a question there.
Sure.
I don't want to get into the details, but how are the network topologies different?
We have radial networks, and these networks, they have different end users, different demands, and the distances between these networks are different, and the topologies are also different. If I refer to, see, the topology of these networks are different. Some of the networks, were radial, some of them were mesh, and we wanted to see actually what would be the impact of the network topology and also different load profiles existing at the end of each of these nodes and buses.
So those nodes are
Those are buildings, yes, facilities. One of the most interesting applications that we found in our study was how ES can operate in the grid, how ES can help the operation of the grid and kind of reduce the operation cost of the power grid in the state of New Jersey. Let's assume that we have 600 megawatts of energy storage installed in the grid, and we have to take into account, for example, lithium-ion batteries. They are very responsive and efficient. They can charge during the period that the price of power generation is very cheap, and discharge during the peak period. And that results in this conclusion that using energy storage can help us avoid constructing new peaker plants and avoid from more expensive ways of power generation during the peak time. And that leads into a lot of saving. And it's not all about this. What if we integrate ES with higher scale renewable power generation? We know that based on New Jersey Energy Master Plan, we're going to have 1,100 megawatts of offshore wind power generation very soon, right? What if we integrate this amount, a high amount of ES with wind power generation, and how these larger scale batteries and larger scale ES technologies can support wind power generation? Most of the time, power generation of wind, offshore wind, is not needed because there is no demand for it. What if we install and integrate a huge battery next to the offshore wind system, charge the battery when the demand is needed, and discharge it during the peak hours? For example, here we can see that it's a very messy diagram because I had to kind of include all these curves all together. But this in general I hope that everyone has the slides. We can go home and check it out in detail. But this tells us, and it's very obvious, that the battery charges whenever the demand is low, but the renewable power offshore wind power generation is available, but it discharges. See, here in this blue line, we have the demand going up, and the yellow line indicates ES discharging. See, the discharging exactly happens when the demand goes up. So this helps a lot to recover and displace the power generation through offshore wind and kind of save a lot of money and save a lot of energy here, right? So I guess I basically covered a good number of applications of ES. I just wanted to make it short and sweet. If you want more detail, please don't hesitate to email me. If you need my email, I would be happy to kind of get back to you. And I guess that's it. I pass it to Quentin. Thank you.
Can I ask one quick question?
Sure. Oh,
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, did you look at retail rate structures and the possibility of using energy storage to, say, avoid a demand ratchet or otherwise sort of impact the rates that a customer is paying on the retail side?
The impact of the ES adoption on energy pricing is somehow, I'm sorry, is kind of related to these results. These results are based on a unit commitment simulation based on New Jersey power grid dynamics. So it's like an optimization. The dual solution of this optimization gives us the variations in energy price. Using ES technologies can also impact the energy prices for the end users and customers. I'm not sure if I answered that. If you want to know the impact of ES on variations of retail market and wholesale market, this can be kind of, but we didn't look at that because we need exact prices, and we didn't have enough data to kind of investigate the whole problem.
I think you'll find it's a good area for future work because a lot of the applications where I've seen batteries economic is actually not so much on the wholesale or the energy arbitrage, but is actually managing at a very detailed level the facility's load profile and sort of arbitraging inefficiencies in the retail rate structure. So we could talk about that.
Sure.
Actually, I think some of your facility cases probably captured.
They were like,
that, right?
the objective there was, I talked about energy bill management. The objective was to reduce electricity bill for the facilities. And, at the end, somehow it's going to impact the retail prices as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so the final topic we want to introduce is sort of weighing the costs and benefits of some of these different proposed technologies in specific applications. And again, you know, I'm trying to do this in about 5 minutes, so it's going to skim the surface of what's can be quite a detailed, you know, set of analyses, and the report, whose website I gave you, has lots and lots of details and lots of sensitivity runs exploring different sets of assumptions. But just for the big picture now, when you think about costs and benefits of installing energy storage, there, in order to make it sort of analytically tractable, we had to identify a set of costs and a set of benefits we were able to study. And so I'm laying those out right here. And the obvious point is that if you chose different costs and different benefits within your universe, you might get different results. But we included upfront capital expenditures, CapEx, operating and maintenance expenditures, investment tax credits, accelerated depreciation. Basically, we tried to capture the influence of tax policy on all this. We tried to carry through what are the costs that that you'd realistically expect to incur. On the benefits side of things, we included avoided demand charges, and that is a proxy for avoided transmission and distribution costs in some ways. Also avoided energy costs, and then a couple of revenue streams, frequency regulation and arbitrage revenue. And then we included a couple of non-financial benefits. One is the value of avoided outages. You know, how much would you pay to not have the lights go out? And if you're in Northern California, that's something that you can really ask yourself now. And also the value of the net change in air pollution emissions. Formally, we need to recognize that these costs and benefits are going to play out over time, over the lifetime. Just a sec. And there's a formal way to calculate that, and that's called net present value calculation, where you look at the difference between benefits and costs in each time period, apply a discount rate to bring it back to a net present value. Yeah, you had a question.
Yes, I'm just trying to understand the benefits and how was it structured. In this analysis, did you consider what's the length of the battery with the energy that you are assuming in this analysis? 4 hours, 10 hours?
Do you remember our lifetime?
Yeah, the duration
Yeah.
is 1 hour and 4 hours. And we had, we had this sensitivity analysis, but we decided to just include 1 hour and 4 hours because, we ran a bunch of, simulation, but we picked 1 hour and 4 hours.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to spend an additional minute on the non-financial benefits because they're areas that are often of interest. We have great expectations that these non-financial benefits are going to be important. And it's important to know, where does New Jersey currently get its electricity from? Okay, half of it's nuclear, most of the rest is natural gas. And when you go to the broader PJM region, you'll add in some coal too. But one thing that does is it sort of depresses the difference between the peak and off-peak emissions rates for carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides. And so you end up, and then these are 2018 data, pounds per megawatt hour of emissions rates. The CO2 peak on peak hours is 1,338 pounds per megawatt hour. And for off-peak, it's 1,254 pounds per megawatt hour. So the difference that you might see is going to be 84 pounds per megawatt hour, which is actually, when you carry it through to a value of avoided emissions, $40 a ton, that's 2 cents per pound. that's equivalent to $1.68 per megawatt hour. If you add up across these three pollutants, that's $1.90 per megawatt hour. In other words, that's a pretty small number because New Jersey is a relatively clean system already, and the difference between peak and off-peak emissions just isn't that much. And so, in a way, this is a disappointing number. It's not going to have a lot of leverage on a benefit cost analysis. I think you had a comment or a question.
Just to clarify, that's just for PJM? Is it for PJM or is it for New Jersey?
This is PJM.
So is New
Yeah.
Jersey broader or?
New Jersey's would be even narrower,
Yeah.
actually.
So-
Yes, sir.
The definition of peak and off-peak, I assume you're following PJM definition, hours of peak and off-peak?
I remember that we went through this discussion because there were at least two definitions flying around. I don't remember which one we ended up choosing. Do you, by any chance?
And the reason, I just want to
Yeah.
highlight that the difference is if you're studying what Massachusetts is doing with their clean peak standards, they focus on the 20 hours most expensive, most polluting in designing their.
That's right. They used like the 20 hours of the year
Yeah.
as their peak or
Because
something
that's
like
when you
that.
get all the polluting peakers on, right? So I
Yeah.
think if you recalculated this based on limited duration,
Mhm.
high polluting resources,
Yes.
that value would go substantially higher.
I know we looked at that in our sensitivity runs, and it made a little difference, not as much as it would in Massachusetts.
How about for health benefits?
You can, you're not going to see that for CO2 too much, but you
Right.
certainly would see it for NOx.
Right.
And
Did you factor that in at all?
Well, this dollars per pound number is a literature, I believe it's from the EPA study that included some health estimate of health
A
benefits.
recent EPA study or an older EPA study?
2017. I think.
Okay, that's okay.
Is that right? Certainly, for some of these details, we want to go to the
Yeah.
report. I want to switch over to the avoided loss of load. To highlight, this is dollars per megawatt hour lost for several different sectors. And the quick takeaway is, gosh, it varies by an order of magnitude depending on whether you're talking about, finance, insurance, and real estate, or manufacturing, let's say. And that means that the sort of reliability benefits of storage are going to vary quite a bit from facility to facility. Okay, I want to get on to the high-level findings now. So at the bulk power level, looking at frequency regulation and price arbitrage types of applications for our 600 megawatts, we saw lots of benefit cost ratios that were greater than 1, especially when we combined these two. And so it's clear that there are some applications that are good natural investments at the bulk power level for energy storage. And this is across several different sets of assumptions about, in this case, the CapEx or installation cost. When we move to the distribution level, the story isn't quite as nice. We do see that when you're only doing energy storage to, let's say, support a distribution feeder, make it a little more robust, the benefit cost ratio is pretty low. This is 0.44. When you couple it with photovoltaics, as Ali was describing, you improve the benefit cost ratio a fair amount. It's still less than 1. In other words, the costs are still greater than the benefits according to the sets of costs and benefits that we looked at. Then when we get down to customer level applications, hospital, apartment complex, hotel, office, secondary school, supermarket, we see that if you do energy storage alone, that's these bars, the benefit cost ratio is not so good. It's down around 0.2. So costs greatly exceed the benefits. When you couple it with supporting photovoltaics, you often double the benefit cost ratio, and it gets up into the range 0.3 to 0.7. So it's still less than 1, but it's closer to cost parity. And then if you try to estimate the...
Can I ask you one question?
Yes.
On the paragraph? When you did the customer level application, I'm assuming that you're evaluating storage and solar or storage alone, but only at behind the meter value. Did you take a look at the case where you're using that behind the meter resource for front of the meter value enhancements, either at the distribution level or at the transmission level?
No, partly because we were skeptical that customers would be willing to turn over control of their energy storage to the grid if they were counting on it for their own purposes.
Did you factor in, I've got solar, I get storage, I got a smart inverter. Sandy happens, I can have electricity for 5 days afterwards. Did you factor that into that? Because that's why I want storage.
Mm-hmm. We did, and this was an area where Ali mentioned 1 hour versus 4 hour.
Yeah.
And one of the ways in which the photovoltaics greatly increases the net benefits is because when you get up to something like a 4 hour storage plus the photovoltaics, you can kind of coast from day to day
Yes, you
pretty
can.
well.
Keep the refrigerator going and be able to charge your phone.
Exactly.
So is that factored into the benefits?
Yes, that's why they jump so much.
Okay.
But how do you value that? I mean, what's the polling that says what people will pay for that?
I'll pay more than that. Whatever that is.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna live with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my neighbors
It's
are.
really hard to quantify. It's just,
Yeah.
I think that's a big question mark.
Yeah. And so getting a little bit closer to the realm of policy implications, if we have benefit cost rate, so at the bulk power level, it looks like there are applications that have no financing gaps. People acting in the private market would go ahead and make those investments. At the distribution level, we see benefit cost ratios less than 1. That implies a financing gap that needs to be filled somehow if we want those distribution level applications to go forward. However, we do not have access to distribution capacity constraints. That's something the utilities have, and we do not. So they're.
Are you asking the VPU to get them for you?
We did ask, but we did not receive. Then at the customer level, we have the standalone energy storage, and we have coupling storage with photovoltaics. And here you can see there's quite a range of numbers in here. And so that suggests, depending on how hard we want to try and what the assumptions and sort of, how much do we actually end up having to pay to install the energy storage, there's a financing gap that's somewhere between $100 million and $1 billion. And where the state ends up, trying to design policies, we can turn to the state policymakers to find out what their thinking is. There are certainly some cases where the value of avoided outages is significant enough that maybe it's not really 140 million of financing gap. Maybe from the perspective of Jean and her house, it's all she's sees value in avoiding outages of on the order of, say, 100 million, which would say maybe the financing gap is only 40 million. In any case, you can see the pattern of the financing gaps. They are especially noticeable at the customer level, and they're not so visible at the bulk power level. So to wrap up, clearly pumped hydro and thermal storage are cost effective today. Lithium-ion battery storage costs are dropping rapidly. They are currently cost effective in providing bulk power system services. They're not yet cost effective for most of the distribution and customer level applications that we looked at, although that will change over the next few years. As cost drops, we can identify some good bets. One is grid stabilization for offshore wind projects and for electric vehicle charging stations. And when we think about providing incentives or filling financing gaps somehow, if we want to get 600 megawatts of customer level applications, we can see the most likely attractive targets are going to be combining it with solar in high value applications like hospitals and hotels and supermarkets. Certainly the slower we deploy these systems, the more likely they are to become cost effective because of the downward sloping cost curve for these technologies. So thank you for your time, and let's open it up for some discussion.
Quick question. Could you say a little more about the time frame you guys are assuming? Because we tend to speak in terms of power and not energy. So are we talking 1 hour batteries, 2 hour batteries, month-long batteries? What's in your assumptions for laying this out? The legislation doesn't tell us. So what are you guys thinking?
So the fact is that, small rated capacities compared to the peak demand of the building are more justifiable.
Yep.
Larger rated capacities does not mean, and the duration of the battery is also important. 1 hour, 4 hours. There are I don't know, what current practices are, but there's a default assumption here that either 4 hour or 1 hour. Mm-hmm. The longer duration would not make any sense.
Yep.
So here, can I suggest anything? But my personal opinion here is that low rated capacities compared to the peak demand of the building with 1 hour or 4 hour duration. So, and the fact is that it all depends. Maybe if you're targeting the resiliency of the facility, and that facility is critical, maybe you come up with higher rated capacities and higher duration. But there's, for a general rule, lower rated capacities with 1 hour or 4 hour duration.
Thank you.
You have the next question.
Sorry, it all depends what you want to do. The average in the US is 1.7 hours.
Oh.
And the only state where they're really mostly above that time frame is in California. They're 4 hours and over. Now the tendency is more towards the 4 hours in everywhere else. But it depends what you want to do with your battery.
Yes.
So towards in the east side, it's basically 1 hour to 2 hours maximum.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
You may.
In your analysis, did you put it into a broader context of a climate action plan and look at the benefits with respect to being able to bring more renewables online, and also the carbon footprint of bringing each of these different technologies in? Did you do that analysis?
We did not do the Energy Master Plan. Other people are doing that. We have tried to make this relevant to it by looking at specific applications that help with the sort of the low carbon transition, such as stabilizing distribution feeders that are starting to get close to their capacity in how much solar is being put on them. And so we were looking at those specific applications that are in support of that kind of objective.
I think the reason I'm asking this question is when you look at the benefits, I'm missing some things in your benefits list as it relates back to a bigger energy profile. And so I'd like to encourage you to think about what some of the additional benefits are and build that into your model. Not that I'm trying to get the cost to benefit ratio up higher, but I think there are a lot of people who are going to be asking other questions and how you're factoring them into your analysis.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Tom Lyden with EDF Renewables. First, I want to recognize a couple of people here, Commissioner Shivakula and Gene Fox, who is the president of BPU. Both of them are pioneers in clean energy in New Jersey, and they've done an incredible job, and we owe a debt of gratitude to them. So we're a developer of renewable energy projects. We have 8 gigawatts of wind and solar projects in North America. And we have 380 megawatts of storage globally, so we have pretty broad experience in this. We recognize in New Jersey there is an opportunity to get more renewables, and storage is an enabler of more renewables. That's a really important thing for climate change. And as a developer, we're ready, and we in the industry are ready to come into New Jersey. There are nice targets here, but there's just a little financial gap, which is what you guys look at, that I think if you make up, it's going to be a really good market here. And I don't think you looked at the economic development of that either. There is huge economic development opportunity, job creation in New Jersey, which we've seen in solar big time, that I think we'll see more if we do the right things here. I do think you didn't take into consideration a few things. If you're behind the meter, you could do in front of the meter activities like frequency regulation. You can stack revenues, which is what we do in the industry, of various things, right?
And we did this, the stack value of the
Right,
application.
but here's what you missed. So on the demand reduction side, when you're buying third-party energy, which a lot of people do in New Jersey, there's another couple components that are demand reduction related, ICAP and iTrans. Those are 2 big parts of people's energy bills. Those get reduced. Plus the utility demand charge gets reduced. So those are 3 charges, demand charge related things that right up the bill. So that's really important. And then resiliency is hard to quantify, but it's important. And the other thing is power quality. So there are issues on our grid with power quality for a lot of companies. Batteries can help that as well, so there's another benefit. Again, hard to quantify financially, but it is important to our customers. We've seen that. So we look forward to working with the state, and happy to provide our input as well on what we think are the values that are required. Particularly, I appreciate Commissioner Shivakula here, because he's one of the people who can help on that.
Thank you very much.
Would you want comments? Would you want, for instance, Tom, who's an expert on this stuff, to send you comments or not?
If you like,
Are we
just to
going to
be,
do another project?
No, well, hopefully
Yeah.
you will. Yes, hopefully.
well, just to be clear, this is a project that finished in May.
Yeah.
And so we've moved, the state has moved on to whatever policy making is going on. And so certainly the comments will be better directed to the state, although as we do our research, we want to know what, we want to make realistic assumptions when we do our modeling, and so we certainly value input that way.
But can you make it clear, is your study meant to inform the BPU and our legislators? Is that the idea of the study?
Yeah, that was the idea of the study. But it's not meant to dictate policy or anything.
It's
It's
just
not,
it's an input.
policy analysis was not even part of the scope of that study.
Okay.
You had a question, Matt.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been super informative. I'm Reswan with Footprint to Wings, and so I'm here. You guys are all the experts in the room. You guys are the PhDs, the leaders, environmental leaders, and I really appreciate all your wisdom. The thing I'm worried about is there's this cognitive dissonance around climate change, right? Is there's like, we have to wrap our heads around this catastrophic situation we're facing. Apparently we have to decarbonize the entire economy. Is everybody on board with that? No. And then how much time do we have? It's really not a lot. So we don't get that sense of the urgency. And how far do we have to go? Like, the scale is not clear to me. So our organization is trying to help people wrap their heads around this. We have a new initiative, the first gigawatt down. So it's like football, first down, and it's a gigawatt. Okay, so step one is, well, how big is our field? If we decarbonize everything, we electrify everything, how many gigawatts is that total? And I've got estimates between 20 and 30. right? So, and then just focus on that one unit. Like, what would it take to swap out fossil fuels to get 1 gigawatt worth of renewable energy? And then, so my question to you is, when we do that, what is the battery we need to maintain that? And then as you scale up, that's just the first one, but going all the way up to the 20 gigawatts, 30 gigawatts. What do we need? What do we need to make that happen? And
It's an interesting question. It's a good way to get a plug in, too. But clearly, the answer that I think we've already given is that if what you're after is quantity, you better be aiming at the bulk power system today.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, we can start to find these other great applications as prices come down. That's what we feel like we've understood from all this. Is there, let's see, I think you were first, and then you.
So you studied it, you basically studied on 600 megawatts. Where did you get that number, and did you do a sensitivity analysis if that number was increased to a gigawatt or more?
The 600 megawatts came out of the legislation. That was the target that this state legislature has set for New Jersey. And so that was what we looked at. Did we look at some higher numbers?
No.
No,
Yeah. I think you had a
Yes.
comment.
Thanks so much for the presentation. It was very informative. I used to work at the utility in New York, in Edison, and what I'm bringing this up is because you have identified a gap, financial gap between the existing cost and the benefit of the batteries, the energy storage, and where it has to be in order to be cost effective. What in New York they have done through the REV, Reforming the Energy Vision, is to identify an order and catalyze and market to incentivize non-wires alternative, which will be a different way to overcome the marginal cost of the utility to build that infrastructure. So my question is, do you see this is the right setting in order to, I don't know, push or provide some sort of background or provide the intention to achieve this kind of goal by generating a regulation or a policy that will incentivize the use of energy storage in order to make it cost effective in the short term, in order to accelerate the adoption of this technology in such a way that will decrease even further the cost of the technology? That's on one side, and on the other side, what are the potential options that we have today, as New Jersey has been a leader in solar photovoltaic, to implement energy storage and utilize all that green energy and achieve the peak and utilize that green power to effectively achieve the peak of the existing infrastructure that we have today?
Okay, I'm trying to think whether that was a question or, I mean, my sense is that proposing specific policies is a great thing to do now. This technical analysis is behind us. Policy making is ahead of you all, and I think there's a lot to learn from New York and Massachusetts and the states that are a little bit ahead of us in this. Some of the lessons actually that we learned during the technical analysis was don't repeat their technical analyses because they did a lot of double counting in
they made
theirs.
some mistakes.
But
A lot of mistakes.
yeah, but the policy proposals, we're starting to, I think we can start to learn some lessons from them so that we don't have to relearn them ourselves. We've gone 10 minutes over time. I'll take one more question if there is one.
Well, based on what
Yeah.
he asked, non-wires alternatives,
Yeah.
obviously is a good thing. I know I proposed it to the Energy Master Plan, but I think his storage very well will fit into non-wires alternatives. Did you look at that at all? Because it would then cut the cost of more transmission and all that kind of stuff.